Hi, I'm Jenny from American Hydroponics, and welcome to our monthly webinar. This month's webinar is about information on NFT systems and hydroponic systems. So first of all, we'll just kind of clarify and set some ground rules. There are lots of types of hydroponic systems, the most common being NFT, which is nutrient film technique, which is what we're going to primarily talk about today. There's ebb and flood, there's aeroponics, there's deep water culture or raft. There are several different types. AmHydro has focused for the last 35 years on NFT or nutrient film technique. And what this one is, well, first of all, we focused on that because we feel that that has the greatest possibility for commercial success, is the NFT. And there's a couple of reasons why. The stability and consistency of what is produced and also the productivity out of an NFT system. So what we're going to talk about, as is usual for us, what we really do is commercial systems. And what you see behind me here is a commercial greenhouse. This greenhouse could be run as a small business. This greenhouse can be run by one individual, and it can produce about 2,592 plants every week. So this is considered a commercial greenhouse with a commercial growing system. Now there are lots of other growing systems out there that are not commercial. There are little desktop ones or little countertop ones that are super cute that you can put in your kitchen and have fresh herbs and pick some dill if you're making some salmon, or maybe have some fresh basil if you want to make some pesto. So there are those. IKEA has a little hydroponic system out there. Again, these are kind of little personal systems. What we're going to talk about is commercial systems. So you wouldn't have a setup like this for your personal use or for your family's use. This is considered, again, it's a commercial system, and it puts out a lot with the intention of being a small business. So let's talk a little bit specifically about NFT, which means, again, it's nutrient film technique. And what this means is on the bottom there is a thin layer of nutrient-rich water that constantly runs over the roots, or actually under the roots, and is nourishing the roots that way. Again, with hydroponics, you're basically growing plants without any soil. So they have to still have all those natural salts and minerals that they would find in the soil, which is what we do here. With the water, the reservoir, we add all natural salts and minerals, the composition being what a particular plant needs to grow to its full productivity. That's put into a water, and it's called the working solution or the nutrient solution. And that is constantly flowing. So on the system you see behind me here, each one of these trays, each one of these white trays or channels, as they're called, has water constantly flowing through it. Now I have a couple of pieces of channel right here so we can get a little better idea for it. So this is what you're looking at. You'll find AmHydro's NFT. There's a couple of benefits of our system right here. One, this is made from an HDPE. It's a virgin HDPE. It's 100% recyclable. It's manufactured and extruded right here in the U.S., so it's not PVC made in China or Mexico or something like that. We're the only NFT company, we're the only hydroponic company that actually extrudes from HDPE here in the U.S. There are others that make it from PVC, extruded in China or other places, but ours is actually manufactured right here in the U.S. HDPE is, there's a couple of reasons why we use that as opposed to PVC or anything else. HDPE, which is high density polyethylene, is, again, it's 100% recyclable. It's also FDA approved food grade. So you're not going to have any leaching. It's not PVC that'll crack. You're not going to have any kind of leaching of anything because there won't be any cracking. It is FDA food grade material that we use in all of our systems. So the piece I have right here in my hand, again, I just picked up some scrap pieces that we had in the warehouse, and you'll see anytime you see this design, you'll see it's a little bit unique. Sometimes you'll see like just round tubes, and sometimes you'll see just square tubes. but ours is done very intentional. It's a design that's proprietary to AmHydro, and let me tell you a little bit about it. So first of all, you'll notice kind of the unique shape of it, and there's a reason for that. First of all, the size is 4 inches wide by 2 inches tall. You'll notice these shoulders on the side right here. What that's for is for airflow. So as the plants are growing, you can see when they're growing up something big like this, the channels are about 1 inch apart, and what that is for is so the air can come up between, so the air can slide up between here, and the leaves, because airflow is so important to plant growth and plant health. So the leaves, if they sit down and kind of as they're growing, if they lay on the channel, as the air comes up, it can actually reach underneath the leaves. Whereas if you had, for example, if this were the top of it, the leaves laying flat on here, you have no airflow coming in there. So that's one of the first things with the unique shape of the channel. It's for airflow, the shoulders on it. The 4 inches by 2 inches, that's for stability. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to show you. For example, this is a full 12-foot long channel, which our standard channel is 12 feet long. And you can see if I'm picking it up and moving it, it's very easy to move around, and you can see there's no twisting or turning on a long plant like this. And when you're dealing with a commercial product and every plant it needs to be marketable and represents money to you, then you want to be sure that you're not going to lose any plants out of the end of it because your channel is twisting and turning at the end. So the 4 inches by 2 inches is the perfect ratio so that you can have a nice long 12-foot, 14-foot, we even have customers who have 18 and 20-foot channel, and you can still pick it up, you can still move it around without the plants at the end twisting. Another thing that helps that is you'll notice the ridges down here on the bottom of it. That's for actually a couple of different purposes. One of them is for stability. Again, they go the entire length of the channel, whether it be 12, 14, 20 feet long. Again, helps for stability, and so the channel doesn't rock and twist at the end and you're not losing plants. The other reason for that is because as you have your plant, let me pull one of these guys up. As you have your plant, and you see the roots at the bottom, and it's going in there, and it goes inside there, you'll notice the plant is not sitting on the very bottom, and so you're not going to be able to, the plant isn't going to be able to be stuck there because the roots come out of the bottom of the plant. So you don't want it on a flat surface where the roots can get suffocated from lack of oxygen. So the ridges at the bottom provide oxygen to the plants, provide stability, and the last thing that they do is provide water flow. So all the water's not going to pool over to one side or the other. It helps guide water down the entire width of the channel. So if you get one, again, let me just grab this. If you get a plant that for whatever reason is kind of a little bit cockeyed or over to the side like this, the water's not going to miss it entirely because the ridges help guide the water, so the entire width of 4 inches of the plant get water. So that's the design. That's the design of our NFT. It's unique. Anytime you see this design, you know it's an AmHydro channel. And again, we are all over the world. We're in 66 countries. So you can see this if you go to our Instagram, which is just @AmHydro. You'll notice we are all over the place, and you always see this shape channel. You know this is AmHydro channel. So another aspect of our channel that's designed, and this is something that we call crop turn technology. It's, again, unique to AmHydro. There are not other companies that do this, but what it allows is for us to actually have twice the productivity in the same footprint of space of any other system out there. Most NFT systems and most hydroponic systems will have a two-step process. That is, there'll be the propagation, which is over here to my right, and that's where you actually have all of the seeding going on. So you seed right here in these trays. It's called propagation, and the trays come up, and you can see how dense it is in here, right? Because the plants are just very, very small. They don't need a lot of space. Then the next step that most companies do is straight into a finishing channel. And so it'll spend 2 weeks in the propagation trays, 2 weeks, and then it will spend the rest of its life in most systems, which is 4 weeks, in what they call the finishing channel. For a standard butterhead lettuce, this is standard across the industry, you want about 8 inches from center to center, because that's how much space you need for a whole head of lettuce to grow. So they'll take it from the propagation and put it directly into the finishing. Well, what AmHydro does, again, our crop turn technology, is we have an intermediary step. That is, we use what's called our nursery channel. So we have a 3-step process. Step 1, just like everybody else, we have a propagation system, which they spend 2 weeks in the propagation system in the trays. Then they're still very small plants. They don't need to be placed 8 inches apart yet. They're still very, very small plants. So here we put them in what we call our nursery channels. And you can see how close together, compared to the finishing channels, you can see how close together the nursery channels are. The reason for that is, again, the plants are very small. They don't need all this space. So the second step is you transplant them, which are all these first initial ones you see right here. All of these are in our nursery channels. They will be transplanted to our finishing channel after 2 weeks. So what's going to happen is they spend 2 weeks in our propagation. They're going to spend 2 weeks in what we call our nursery channel, and then they'll be moved to our finishing channel, which they'll spend the remainder 2 weeks for a standard 42 days or 6 weeks for a butterhead lettuce. So if, for example, we're looking at these little babies right here, these are basil, and here they are. They're 3 weeks old from seed. You can see the root mass down at the bottom. You can see they don't need to go in the nursery channel and have this much space between them. Let me just grab another one to show you. You can see I'm just going to show you because look at those beautiful white roots taking root. Again, these are 3 week old from seed. So you can see putting them in a finishing channel 8 inches apart. Now, while they will need that to finish, and when you harvest them, they don't need that right now. There's a bunch of wasted space here. So instead, what we do is we put them in the nursery channel where they're very close together because they don't need that much space. But what this allows us to do is it allows us absolutely twice the productivity of any other system out there. So with this 3-step process, that is 2 weeks in the propagation, 2 weeks in the nursery, and then 2 weeks in the finishing, we can get twice the productivity out of the same exact footprint of space as anybody else out there. So, and just so you know, the nursery trays have, in a standard 12-foot long stick of channel, they have 72 holes, and in the same 12-foot long stick of channel, in the finishing, there are 18 holes. So it is a 4-to-1 ratio. For every 1 stick of nursery, you can transplant into 4 finishing channels. So you can see you're using about 1/4 the space as you would be using for a full finishing. So that's the crop turn. That's the nursery, the propagation to nursery to finishing. Now, what a lot of people might say is, well, what about all of that extra labor? Because you are transplanting it 1 full extra time. And for about $60 worth of labor and about $12 an hour, depending on where you are, for about $60 worth of labor to do that, you're netting over $1,000 worth of revenue if you're selling your finished plants for $1.25 each wholesale. So you can see for $60 worth of labor, you're netting about $1,000 more in revenue. So we feel that that kind of return is absolutely worth the extra work of transplanting. So that's the finishing. I just kind of want to now point out a couple of different things. A lot of people will look at it and say, well, what about algae? And I'm just kind of looking here real quick to see there's no algae growing in any of these, but sometimes, depending on where you are, you might actually have some algae growing in the end. Well, algae in those kind of small doses is absolutely not harmful. I mean, clearly you don't want it to take over your reservoir, but it's not doesn't happen because you're transplanting and cleaning these every 2 weeks. But if you do get algae and you just don't like the appearance of it, we have a couple of different things that you can put. One, they're called Incaps. One is a solid Incap. It's going to snap right on here and stay on here. Let's see. So it's going to snap right on here. So what that means is you're still going to put your microtube. You're still going to put your microtube right in here. And the end cap just allows no light to come in, so you're not going to get any algae there. Another thing that we have is a window end cap. Same exact idea. It's going to keep out a little bit of the light. You can see it keep out a little bit of the light, a little bit of the backflow. But again, these are completely per your preference. They don't add anything to the system. They may help cut down on algae, but other than that, those aren't necessary. The other thing I wanted to show you is, for example, a lot of people say, well, your holes are round, and I use square Oasis. So here's Oasis, which is a growing medium. And I just want to show you, so this is a standard Oasis. You can see how it very easily fits within the hole. There's no problem. Even within the nursery holes, you can see, even though it's square, it still very easily fits within the round holes. So these are just some of the questions we get. Why are they round holes if the growing medium is square? What about algae? You know, the labor it takes to transplant, that sort of thing. So that's really, and then as you can see, our system is completely, as you may know, it's a completely recirculating system, so there's no water loss. You can look down here, there's no drips, you've got no water loss anywhere in here. And so that's one of the huge benefits about hydroponics. Most hydroponic systems are recirculating. You're going to save 90 to 95% less water compared to soil farming. You're going to save about, you're only going to use about 1/6 the amount of fertilizer that you would use in soil farming. Again, because it's recirculating, plants are taking up what they need. It's going back to the reservoir, it's being mixed. If fresh water needs to be added, that's automatically added, and a little bit of nutrient might be automatically added. But because it's recirculating, you're saving 90 to 95% water on your water usage, and you're only using about 1/6 the amount of fertilizer. The other, as you can see here, I mentioned this space right here. This is a 30 by 96. It's a 2,880 square foot facility, and it has the ability to put out just over 2,500 plants every single week. So you can see the productivity with hydroponics, and with our system in particular, you have about 10 times the yield that you would from a normal soil agriculture. The other thing about hydroponics, which makes it so great, because you're growing in a controlled environment, you have consistency. So as you look over here, you can see the consistency in the product out there, and you can look and you can see everything is the same height, everything is the same growth rate, so you have absolute consistency as you're looking through all of your nursery plants, all of your finishing plants, and that increases your productivity as well. So you have consistency, you have lower water use, you have lower fertilizer use, you have greater yield, and because of the consistency, you also have a higher marketability, right? So you're bringing to the store, to your customers, a very, very clean product. You're not bringing them something that they have to wash first. No pesticides are used in hydroponics. There's no soil or dirt, so you're not getting any of that gritty taste. So that's some of the issues with some of the benefits of NFT. There are a couple of different kinds of NFT. All NFT means, again, is nutrient film technique, which is a thin layer of water that bathes the roots coming out of the bottom of the cube. Let's again pull one of these up so you can really see. So the roots on the bottom, again, you can see how healthy those are, how white and beautiful and full they are. Again, NFT is just water flowing right down along the roots, giving it the water, the nutrients, and the oxygen it needs. Now that can happen happen, well, it's most common to happen in channels, whether it be our channels or different channels. It's most common. That's generally when people talk about NFT, what they're thinking about. But it can also happen. You might hear, if you've been researching hydroponics, you might hear about vertical towers. That's also a form of NFT. That is, there's water coming from the top, and essentially the plants are growing like this, and it's the same sort of, that's also NFT. Water is being fed from the top, and it's running and growing down. Another form of NFT is we have a layered system that we're trialing out here. It's a great big tray. It's a 4-foot by 4-foot tray, and we've got 5 of them stacked up. That's a layered version, and that's also water running under, even though it's not in a small 4-inch wide by 2-inch high channel. It is still water flowing, and that whole, again, NFT system, which is water running and bathing the roots and giving the plants the nourishment they need. So those are some of the NFTs. Certainly this is the most common, but there are other kinds, as I mentioned, like the vertical tower. That's great if you want to put something just in your kitchen, have it in a corner. Again, it's a consumer type of model. The layered one, a lot of people are kind of real high on the vertical type of hydroponics. One of the problems of that is it's not economical yet with the cost. You have to provide lighting above every single layer, so that's one of the drawbacks of that one. But let's talk about some of the drawbacks of just NFT in general and hydroponics in general. The biggest drawback, of course, is the cost setup, because all of this, while it will last you for generations, quite honestly, we have customers that have been using the same exact channel and system for over 22 years. So it will last a long, long time. It's one of the benefits of HDPE is that it lasts so long. But there's no way around it. The cost of setting up a hydroponic system, and in particular an NFT system, is quite expensive. So if you're interested in doing it, you can go to our website, look at our bundles. You can see a bundle this size is just the growing system is somewhere around $36,000, I think. So it's not inexpensive. And then you have to provide the greenhouse, which is very, very expensive, the construction. So that's really the biggest drawback about hydroponics and starting a hydroponic business is the upfront cost that it takes. Again, it's an investment that will last you decades and if not generations, but definitely the setup is very expensive. It's also expensive to mechanize. If you wanted to do some kind of mechanized or automated system, it's much more expensive to do something like that. Our system costs anywhere from $8 to $10 a square foot. When you're looking at, for example, a mechanized system, they're usually somewhere in the range of $40 to $45 a square foot. So you can see how expensive it gets. And just not the system, but the actual greenhouse setup is quite expensive as well. So if you have a hydroponic system like this, you're going to need to put it in a greenhouse or in a controlled environment, and that gets very expensive as well. So really, the drawbacks with hydroponics and with NFT is the upfront cost involved. The benefits, we feel, far outweigh that, with, in particular, the productivity, the fact that you're not using any pesticides, that you can grow in a relatively small space for your entire community. And you're not using land resources. You can let the land rest, or you can use the land to grow something that doesn't grow as economically viable in a hydroponic system, like fruit trees or wheat or something along those lines. While tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, eggplants, they go great in a bucket system, in an NFT system like this. Any kind of leafy green. Again, if you kind of look behind me as I step out of the way, you can probably count up at least a dozen different varieties that you can see all growing together right here in this system. And one thing I didn't mention, and I want to point out, although it might be evident, is the nursery and the finishing grow side by side in the same system. So you're not looking at two separate systems. They all grow together in one system, being fed the same thing, all being interchanged. There's not, you know, that you don't have to place them all in one area, so there's a lot of flexibility in that. So that's NFT. That's kind of everything you know to get started in your research on if you want to have a hydroponic business, kind of giving you all the basics of the NFT system there. We feel it's the most viable commercial system out there. Check into some of the other ones. Again, there's a raft or deep water culture, there's aeroponics, there are hydroponics, there's the bucket system, there's a couple of different ones. We feel, and I think any commercial, especially large commercial hydroponic grower you'll find out there uses some version of an NFT system. So go to our website and check out the Get Growing bundles. You can see what it will cost, what space you need, and everything that you need to get started growing. Again, a system like this, which is a 30-foot wide by 96-foot long greenhouse, has the ability to produce about 2,000, just over 2,500 plants a week, and can be run by one person. And one full-time person kind of doing all the work that needs to be done. And so this could be a business that returns a pretty decent payout to, plus a salary to the owner of the business. So that's kind of everything. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to email us at info@amhydro.com. Check out our website, check out our Get Growing bundles, and you'll notice we have a special. There's a code on your screen right now, and with that you can get 25% off the nutrients if you order online with Spring 25. And also our next webinar will be April 19th, and that'll be titled The Core Principles of Production on Crop, and that'll be with Joe and Charlie McKenzie. So plan on signing up for that. Join us for that. Also, if you're interested in coming to our 2-day seminar, we're sold out every time we have one of these. They're held right here in our HCOE greenhouse. There's some classroom time to teach you the basics of hydroponics, but then you come in and you actually work in the greenhouse here. Both days you come in and you spend a lot of time. You get a feel for what does it really take to have a hydroponic business, and that's coming up in June. Check our website for that, and we'd love to see you there. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at info@amhydro.com.